Good evening. It's such an honor to be here with all these talented writers and artists. Thank you, Alex, Sarah, Sharon, and Harryette, for bringing us together at this wonderful event. Alyssa, thank you so much for my beautiful broadside, and to all of my family and friends that are here. You don't know how good it feels to see your smiling faces out there. So as Harryette said, yes, the poems that I'm going to read tonight from my manuscript are inspired by the game Loteria, which is a kind of bingo. In El Salvador, it's played on the local feast days, and each player receives a board printed with 16 images. And the caller, who's in El Salvador called El Cantor, he selects a card randomly and he announces it to the players using a riddle or a rhyme, and rather than calling it by its name. So the players have to be quick enough to figure out what the object is. In El Salvador, the players use maíz or frijoles as markers, and the first to fill their board and call out Loteria is the winner. So what's curious is that in El Salvador, the Loteria is a Mexican version with images like La Chalupa and El Mariachi. And so I wondered what a Salvadoran feminine Loteria might be like. And I started writing poems about women, everyday objects, and animals that are iconic symbols of El Salvador. La Cachiporrista. Because I can't take a photo through the bulletproof glass as our car eases to the corner that merges with the highway, where a chop shop displays its wares of cars quartered into fenders, grills, rims, spoilers, I will have to remember the man's hooded eyes as he watches from behind the wire diamonds of chain link, the whirling wrists of a teenage girl in a majorette skirt, fashioned out of half-inch thick strips of cut newsprint, the fringe swaying with her hips as she twirls a baton of broken broomstick in circles, wrist over wrist, and tosses it high as she turns to catch it, fanning behind her back. And the sun's light pressing on the square patch of a roadside garden of black-eyed Susans, zinnias, and dahlias in plastic gallon jugs and rusted tins. The halved car tire that serves as a trench to keep out the leaf cutter ants that could easily strip the lime sapling bare in the course of one summer night. So, curiously also, an article came out in the New York Times just 10 days ago, published by Oscar Martinez, and it's called Making a Deal with Murderers. I was actually talking to Ben, Alyssa's husband, about this. And to put this poem into context, I'd like to quote the very beginning of his article. It says, in the year 2011, the year 2011 was one of the deadliest since the end of El Salvador's civil war in 1992. There were an appalling 4,371 murders. 11 people were killed each day. With 70 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants, it's one of the most violent countries in the world. If that murder rate were somehow transposed to the city of New York, some 6,000 New Yorkers would be murdered every year. So, the cause of the bloodshed is no secret. It's the war between the rival gangs of Barrio 18 and La Mara Salvatrucha. La Quinceañera. We're here to talk, the Salvatruchas tell her. Let's go down to the dock and have a swim. Johanna's eyes swing toward her mother, who motions with her lips to take her younger sister along. And so they walk in the slanting sunlight to the lakeside, splash on the first 2 steps that descend into shadow. A lone cloud hovers mid-lake. Chep is upset you don't want to be his girl anymore, one of the mareras says. Underwater, her sister sweeps a bare foot across Johanna's calf. Yes, she replies, that's why you're here. The other marera claps a hand on the little sister's shoulder MS-13 etched blue across her knuckles, drops some bills into the sister's palm, and sends her to the corner store for coats. Heads down, shoulder to shoulder, a ring of mountains around the slate waters of Lake Guatepeque. Towers of cloud stuff the mouth of sky. When she stops thrashing, they wade out and walk up the dirt hill to the roadside and make their way back. The sister returns to the rippled edge and finds no one. The mother paces the shore past midnight, flashlight in hand, finds her daughter's rubber sandal in the sandy loam that is only the world bodies of snails. At the day's light, a spearfisher dives beneath the dock and finds Johanna's body tangled among the reeds. Before this, 15 days of rain, like the years of her life, swelled mountainsides, unearthed boulders, felled 200-year-old conacastas. At the hilltop restaurants, where the panorama of lake splays out, people gather on a Sunday night to wail karaoke over soccer matches or lean into their lovers, while children fling their spinning toy tops into a plastic tub, reds and blues dinging the sides, white streaks whirling, warring to be the last one standing. Okay. I think it's important to give you these kind of details because as I was talking to someone earlier, that El Salvador does have a lot of beautiful things to offer, but to not write about these things is, like blotting out the sun with your finger. And so we live there, my husband and I and my children. I grew up in the U.S., but I've been back living there for 13 years now. And so while I get to see these really beautiful images like the majorette, the little girl, that's something that, a corner that I drive past every day, this is the reality that you have to you face and you have to write about it. According to a study published by the University of Michigan, 25% of Salvadoran households are led by single mothers, and a reported 60% of Salvadoran children are born out of wedlock. La enfermera. Resplendent in her whites against a backdrop of green, the nurse pauses on the sidewalk, and I watch her talk to the air, shake her head, and smile. She makes mouth motions I recognize as coos, and then kisses. I look closer to see that she stopped beneath the shade of the amate tree to admire a swaddled infant, 2 weeks at most, sleeping in the grass. The roots of the tree form a kind of cradle, padded with a muslin coffee sack, and the nurse bends to pluck off fallen leaves, brush off an insect, and smooth the blanket across the baby's chest. On the other side of the tree's thick trunk, a teenage girl sits on the curb selling peeled green mangoes. I keep vigil. Cars whisk by, lifting the ruffles of her pink apron. The girl props her drowsing head, leans over the bulge of her emptied womb, extending the bag of fruit, eyes closed, willing anyone, take it all. This poem's for my mother. I really wish she could have been here tonight. La maestra. What stings most is the dotted I, the bird peck gesture his hand must have enacted before he put the top on the permanent marker and walked away. Hate, the sulking H looking more like an N. Reclining on the couch on a Saturday morning, I'd set aside a ream of ungraded essays, and my eye traveled up the amber streaks and dark knots of our new bookshelf, stopped at the 4 words graffitied in green marker. My 9-year-old's thin, tall letters are sloppy. They jostle each other, tumbling to the edge of the shelf. I hate line break. You, mommy. How to reflect on this? There was no slander, just an upsweep of emotion. Make him define love and hate for a page's length. You are to hate your enemy and love your parents. But my own journals were scrawled with such flares. To counter it, write 10 reasons why you love your mother. The tinny taste of that instruction dulls my tongue. Mommy, at what point will that word choice expire? I'll soon become mom or mother. So I erase I hate, and the you, mommy, is left. I look at it, the Tarzan grammar. Yes, me, mommy. To love, to suffer, to wipe clean and forgive. You, mommy. No comma. Tu madre. That's right. So, not all dark and gloomy, but my daughter one day asked me if I wrote about people dying or getting killed, and she was very, very deeply disappointed when I answered that yes. But she hates scary movies. But some of the women that I do write about are very, very much alive. La Vendedora. It jingles in the pockets of her apron with embroidered ruffles, ribbons, and bows. In the intricacies of this cloth cash register and the abundance of her body, she squats in stratas of hips, belly, breasts. It's how she waves the loose skin of her arms over the rising and falling of flies that swarm the baskets of fruit. Pink marañón plucked too young, lustered avocados, the short white skirts of the isote flower, weeping mangoes, the split smile of papaya seeds, black bruised plátanos, and collected at her feet, yesterday's zapotes within their shriveled brown skins. It's all in her hands, the way she slings the braided lasso of hair over her shoulder, wraps it into a bun, and stakes it with a sharpened pencil. The way she sandal swats at a dog sniffing at her child, sleeping in a wicker basket. It's her thumb that pierces the mandarin's heart, her fingers that bring the sweet flesh to her gold-capped teeth as she chews and spits the seeds into her palm. It's how she plucks 4 lines out of the pile with one hand, juggles them into the baggie, and somersaults the package over her wrist, twisting and poking the plastic end into a knot, and places the fruit into my own hands, and nombre de Dios blesses the day's first sale. Thank you.